Howdy, folks. How's it going? Rosendo from MLH here. Glad to have you at Global Hack Week, Beginners Week. Yeah, I hope y'all are doing well. If you're in the chat, let me know. Give me a shout out there. If you haven't checked in yet, make sure that you do so. I'm gonna go ahead and put the link up for y'all in the workshop with us. So it's gonna be mlh.link/GHW Beginner 25 auth0 workshop. I hope y'all are excited. I know Global Hack Week, Beginner Week is usually geared towards, like topics that anyone could really get into, regardless of what your level in, hacking or just like, general software development is. I think today we have a really great workshop that's going to kind of cover that topic for us. It's got to do with the topic of authorization. So a lot of folks probably are familiar with signing into their own applications and logging into their own applications using some sort of like gauth or Google Auth or something like that. Well, today we're going to be using Auth0 to authenticate into a React app. So we're going to show you exactly how you can do that on your own, and utilizing Auth0, which is an API that's actually going to really simplify the process for you. So once again, if you have any questions, if you're in chat, let us know. And use that link to go ahead and get started. And without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Auth0 developer advocate Sierra Ford onto the stage. So please give them a warm round of applause.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. Also, thank you for your patience. We were having some really kind of wonky tech issues earlier, but yeah, I'm glad that we finally got everything settled. And we can get started on our workshop today. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about authentication with React and Auth0. I'm going to share my screen because I have some slides for you guys that I want to show to kind of help us move through the workshop. Because the first kind of half, we're going to be just doing a run through of some like very basic concepts. But before we get into that, I do want to just do a little introduction to myself. So I am a developer advocate here at Auth0, which basically means I do a lot of things like this. I do a lot of workshops and seminars and talks where I'm just basically educating developers of all levels about authentication and authorization and identity access management and kind of what that means when it comes to building applications and how we architecture our applications. So I'm based out of Philadelphia. That's a little city in the United States, a little bit south of New York City. And if you ever have any questions for me and want to stay connected to me, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You could just search my name there, Sierra Ford, and I'll probably be the first person to pop up. Or you can even reach out to me on Twitter. And my username there is Ciorio. I'm also on like Blue Sky and a couple other things, but just look up Sierra Ford. I'm probably like the only person with this name. So I'm pretty easy to find. Moving forward, I want to give you like just an overview of what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start off by just discussing the very basics of authentication and authorization. And when I say auth, that usually means I'm talking about both authentication and authorization. So we'll kind of cover what those things are. We're going to talk about building your own auth, how you can do that, and what are some of the pitfalls of doing that. And then we'll start using Auth0. So that's going to be when we start to do a little bit of coding. Hopefully we can get through that part. I know we started a little bit late, but I'll try to move as quickly as I can while still kind of keeping up and making sure that everyone understands what's going on. So before we can get into anything having to do with authentication, I want you guys to kind of think about what are the key parts of a React app. Think about like, it doesn't even have to per se be a React app. Just think about like a front-end application, a website that you use, an app that you use. What are the key parts when you're using any kind of application like that? When I thought about this, some things came to mind. First of all, it really depends on the functionality of the app. If you're talking about a game versus a social media app versus an e-commerce app versus like a bank app or something like that, they're all going to have like different parts and pieces because of that, depending on the functionality. So whatever you're thinking of, it may vary, but some consistencies are usually a functional navigation bar. So people are going to want to be able to get to, like, say, their profile page or get to information or the About Me page, things like that. So you'll need to have some sort of navigation bar or some form of navigation that allow people to easily do that. You need functional routing. So that's going to be kind of like in tandem with navigation. How do people get to and from pages on the website or the application? You want that to go as smoothly as possible and be as easy for people to understand as possible. And this also kind of goes in tandem with optimal loading speed. So you want it to be something that works pretty fast, especially something that will be able to work when people don't have like full internet access. You want it to still be a pretty good experience for people because believe it or not, like waiting 2 seconds for a page to load when we're talking about like websites is very long. So you're going to want things to move pretty quickly. And those are some of the parts and pieces that you think about when you're thinking about building an application. Like what are the things that I need to work here and what are the things that I need to work really well? Um and one of those pieces that I think about often, obviously because I work here, but just also as a developer in general, is safe and secure login and log out. Most applications are going to need some form of login and log out. If you have users who have accounts, that means they're going to be logging in and logging out. That means you're going to be storing their personal information, like their email address, their passwords, and other things like that. And it needs to be safe and secure. This is all the things that I listed are pretty big parts of building something, building almost any application. And so because these are big parts and almost like included in every sort of app, every sort of application, you need it to work really well. And even more so when we're talking about login and log out. So let's take a closer look at what login and log out is, how it functions under the hood, just so we can fully understand what we're working with here. So when we're talking about logging in and logging out, these are part of identity access management. And identity access management is possibly something you've heard before. If you are, excuse me, if you're looking to work as a professional developer, that's definitely going to be something that comes up in the future. So let's kind of dive more deeply into what IAM is. So this is basically the process of making sure the right people access the right digital resources at the right time and for the right reason. So I know that's a lot of like different words floating around, but it basically means that we want to keep things safe and secure, and we want to make sure that we're allowing the right people to do the right things at the right times. So there are going to be times where the best way I can kind of think of this is like on a basic level, if you're working on a project with some friends, whether it's Google Slides or Google Docs, there are times where you have to control who gets access and what kind of access. So sometimes you'll allow someone to just only view the slides or only view the document. Sometimes you allow someone to edit. So that almost gives them full access. And then sometimes you'll only allow people to comment. And so these are different varying degrees of access to the application or to the digital resource in this case. And you want to make sure that they have it for the right reason. So you might not want, if it's like, for instance, like some sort of competition, you wouldn't want someone on the competing team to have access to your Google Slides. Now you would want someone on your team to have access. If it's some sort of collaboration, you want to make sure that the right people who are doing like what you need them to do have access to the right thing. So just think about that. That's the practical way to kind of like see how IAM works in the real world. Obviously, when we're talking about actual like architecting and building an application, it's going to look differently, but like the best way I can describe that for people who aren't even developers, who to know that they interact with IAM, sometimes that's like a great example of that. So anytime you're working with like Google Docs or Google Slides and you're controlling who has access to what, believe it or not, you're actually working with identity access management. So we've mentioned this before in the outline: authentication and authorization. These are key parts of identity access management. So let's kind of get into what both of those things are. This can be a little bit confusing, especially in the beginning, because they're so the names are slightly similar with the auth in the beginning. A lot of times people will use them interchangeably, although they are not the same. So let's just talk about what differentiates the two. So we're talking about authentication. This is the process of determining a user is who they claim to be. So think about an ID card. If you go to the bank and you're like, hey, I would like to access my bank accounts, they're not just going to be like, okay, cool. Since you say that you're so-and-so, since I said that I'm Ciora, we're going to give you access to Ciora's bank accounts. They want me to prove that I am who I say I am. And usually the way that I do that is by showing them my driver's license or some sort of identification. That is authentication. So we'll see more practical examples of what this looks like when it comes to actually like a website. But again, just a practical everyday example of how we're like authenticating ourselves when we're talking about like something like going to the bank or going to the doctor's office or something like that. And then if we think about authorization is the process of determining what resources a user can access. So if we think about like showing our ID to get into a building, that is like proving I am who I say I am, so you should let me in. When you get into that building, sometimes you'll have like even especially if it's like your job or something like that, you'll have a special ID card. That ID card doesn't necessarily let you into every room in the building, right? Because you may not be granted access to that resource, which is the room. So like, even if I go to the bank and I'm like, hey, this is who I am, here's my ID, and they're like, okay, you can access your account, doesn't mean I can access anyone else's account, just mine. So that's kind of the process of authorization, is like saying who can access what. Like, now we know who you are, but that doesn't mean you can just access anything here. And so just to kind of look at the bigger picture for a second, identity access management is more than just auth, but we're only going to focus on these things now. Just keep that in mind. If like identity access management is something that is like piquing your interest and it's something you want to look more into. But for now, we're just going to focus on the auth pieces, which is again, both authentication and authorization. So as a quick quiz, maybe you can like write this down or comment this somewhere. If we're thinking about logging in and logging out, where does that fit in when we're talking about authorization versus authentication? It's authentication because, again, logging in and logging out is just proving who you are. That's like saying, I am this person and I can have access to these because of I know these credentials. So that's the process of authenticating ourselves. Sometimes when you log into the application, then you have to, that's when the process of authorization kicks in to determine what parts of the website you can or cannot access, what parts of the data you can or cannot access. Has anyone here ever tried to build their own auth system? So if you're building a website, you're trying to like build, log in and log out from scratch. If you have, I really would love to hear what your experience has been like, but I'll walk through what it's like because I've done it before and I don't think this is surprising to anyone, but it's pretty difficult. So usually you'll start with building a form of some sort. Usually that form like includes like some sort of like submit button, a password field, that kind of thing, an email field, because most people are going to log in with a like username or email and password. And then you have to build an API that handles that user information and where it goes, because you can't just input your email and your password and just like let it float in the ether. You have to save that information so that the person can authenticate again. And so then, therefore, because you're creating this API that handles that data and moves that data where it needs to go, you also need to have a database that securely, keyword securely, holds this user information, because we're usually talking about important information or sensitive information that also kind of guards even more important information. So like we talked about the bank earlier, if you're logging into a bank application, like you need to make sure that or if you're creating a bank application, you need to make sure that the database that's storing like things like username and password are super secure, because if someone like gets into the database and there's a data breach of some sort and people's passwords are leaked, now we're talking about super critical information like security, like social security number or bank account routing numbers, things like that. And those are things that we do not want the wrong people to have access to. You'll also need to configure cookies and sessions to keep users logged in even when the page is refreshed or closed. So this is like surprisingly complex, and it's a piece that I don't think a lot of people realize is happening, especially if you're just using a website. Like if you are just looking at it from the user's perspective, a lot of these things happen so fast that we don't think about what it takes to make it happen. But if you open up a tab right now and you log into LinkedIn, and you close the tab, if you reopen it, you're still going to be logged in. And so how do we make that happen? How do we keep the cookies and the sessions in a place where we can make sure that that happens for our users in the app that we're building? And then we also want to create a logout protocol. That doesn't mean we're deleting any users or removing any of their credentials from the current session. Or we don't want to delete users from the database, but we still want to remove their credentials from the current session. So that's a whole thing. That's like these are very complex moving pieces. And again, it's really important that these things work well and are very secure, because we're dealing with very sensitive information that needs to stay safe. So like I keep saying, it's all very complicated. And for a lot of us, if we're doing it from scratch, it's not very secure. I'm going to take a second to drink some water. Excuse me. Talking so much, like you'd be surprised how talking for 15 minutes straight can like really dry your throat up. But yeah, all this is very complicated and it's also not very secure. Your average developer is not an expert in anything concerning identity security or identity access management. That is a whole separate field of study. That's a whole separate like job, really. And so when you're building an application, it is a lot to expect someone to be able to build this key part of most applications without having that added knowledge. And this key part has to be safe and secure. Like, we cannot expect people to trust us with their personal information and data if we don't have this secure. And honestly, too, there are real consequences to building your own auth if it's not secure. And if you're not like an expert in these things. And this is backed by real data. I don't remember the source of this, but it is accurate. I didn't make this up. I didn't just pull this out of thin air. 79% of enterprises experience identity breaches, which means that 79% of them are in some way, shape, or form having some data about their users leaked, which is not good. That's not good. And a lot of times these data breaches can be preventable. So how can we prevent this? What could we do to make sure that this happens less? Or if you are trying to become a developer, if that's like a goal you want to have, you should be thinking about, like, when I join a team, what skill set can I gain right now, or what tools can I use right now that will prepare me to make sure that whatever I build in the future is safe and secure. So we talked about earlier how being an identity security expert is like a whole separate job. If this is something you want to prevent, you could spend the time to become an expert in this field. And then you can also bring other members of your team up to speed by maybe doing some sort of like internal learning sessions or something like that. But that will take time, and you'll also need to have access to the right resources. And unfortunately, this is the kind of thing where like trial and error is pretty, like, those errors are pretty big, because like we talked about, where this is, important information. The other alternative is to use a third-party service like Auth0. There are others out there, but of course, sorry to say, I'm going to recommend Auth0. And I want to show you guys how you can use it pretty simply today. So we're going to get to some code. I want to make sure quickly before I keep sharing I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly, because the code that we're going to be working with, I want to make sure that everyone has access to something to work along with me with. Now, if you're just here to listen, that's totally fine. You can like take notes so that you can like replicate this in the future. But if you want to like work along with me, this is the GitHub repo that I'm working from. And I'm going to share the link so that you guys can this is the git clone command, so that you can clone the repo and then work from it yourself alongside with me. Like I said, we're kind of low on time because we started late because of technical difficulties. So I apologize for that. But just bear with me as we try to do this together. And so even if like right now you're unable to like work along with me, just save this command so that you can use it later when you're ready to. Okay, so back to sharing my screen. Let's get back to the presentation. So we're going to start off by going to auth0.com and creating an account. So I've already done this before, so I'm just going to show you what the dashboard will look like. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly so that I could pull up the right tab. One of the unfortunate mishaps of like having to do a lot of troubleshooting is that I have to like reopen up all of my like tabs that I had prepared ahead of time earlier. So please bear with me. But yeah, I'll show you guys I'll start off by showing you guys the Auth0 website. So you're going to go to the Auth0 website and like basically just log in, create an account if you haven't already. And I'll show you what the dashboard is going to look like in 1 second as I try to reorganize myself a little bit here. Sorry about that. Like I said, I plan on having all of this prepared ahead of time. So I'm going to show you what the Auth0 dashboard looks like. I'm going to give you a quick tour. So here we have the Auth0 dashboard. We're going to start off by clicking this create application button, but I'm going to show you like some of what we have going on over here. So this is where we're going to be working mostly in, where we have our applications listed. And then there are some other things like that are going to become interesting as time goes on if you decide to like fiddle with Auth0 a little bit more later, like branding, user management. This is where you're going to like be able to look at all of your users when they log in and log out. And then you have actions, which is really interesting as well. I'm happy to share resources for like learning more about some of these things, but let's start off by creating our application, I actually have to switch to a different tenant because I have one specifically for things like this, but that's not something you'll have to do. All you have to do is click create application. And when you click create application, you want to choose single page web application because we're only building with a front end application, or we're only building a front end app using React. So you'll click create, and this is where it should take you. So this is also a good thing to reference for later if for whatever reason you're not able to, like, you don't want to keep up right now. We do also have this like React quick start here that's like right in your application settings so that you can follow along here. Most of what I'm going to be doing is also included here, so no worries if you can't like follow along right now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly and go back to my slides. And right, so you can open up your React application of choice. Earlier I shared the git command that you can use if you so choose to like follow along with me. I'm going to be working from that same application like I mentioned earlier. Right now I'm going to share my screen again. Sorry, there's so much like back and forth between the screens. It's like it's kind of complicated, but anyway, I'm going to share my screen again so that you guys can see. We are going to be running, if you have an application that you're using, if you're using the one that I'm using, this is what you'll have to do. We're going to have to run npm install. So I'm going to open up, I'm actually going to stop sharing again. I'm sorry. I actually realized I shared the wrong screen. So I'm going to share my entire screen so I can just switch back and forth between the two easily. But yes, if you are working from the same application as me, we're going to start by running npm install. So here I have my application open in, let me just make sure this is the right one. Yes, it is. So I'm going to be working from the same one as you guys. If you followed that git clone command, and we're just going to run npm install. So this installs all of our dependencies for us, which will be important. So I'm going to let that run. And I think everything should be fine. Like, I'm not really concerned with there being like some vulnerabilities or whatever. If you're actually like working on something real, maybe like be concerned about that, but I'm not going to worry about that today. And so then our next step, oops, I went too far ahead. So we're also going to run our development server just because I want you guys to see what the app looks like. If you're working from your own React application, this might not be a step you need to follow, but or actually it should be a step you should follow because you do want to look at what your app is going to look like in the browser. But we're going to do this. And I want you to also keep an eye on what port your app is running from because this will be important for our next step. So I'm going to go back to our application in VS Code, and I'm going to run npm run start. Ooh, I can't type today. Okay, so this is running from localhost 4040. So we're going to need to remember that. And as you can see, this is our basic React app. This was created by someone on my team actually. And what we're going to do is the goal is to create a login and logout button that will go up here. That'll go in this little corner here. So now that we have that created, remember I said to keep an eye on this. So I'm actually going to copy this because this is important. And I'm going to share my slides again. We're going to move to the next slide. So we created our application in the Auth0 dashboard already. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the settings in our application dashboard, which I'll show you in a second. And then in these fields, so callback URLs, logout URLs, and allow web origins, you're going to paste localhost 440. So if we go to our application settings, where do I have my application settings at? Here we go. I'm just going to show you a screenshot because actually it's not good for us to share. Like, I don't want you guys to see. There's some secrets that are not supposed to be like shared publicly. But actually I think I'll just scroll really fast because I thought there was a screenshot here of like what you need to be looking at. Okay, so this is where we're going to paste the local host. Again, we're in the settings. section of the application of our application in the Auth0 dashboard. So I'm just going to paste here localhost for 4040 again here, and then also an allowed web origin. So these three fields allow callback URLs, allowed logout URLs, and allow web origins is where we're going to have localhost 4040. And so then I'm going to scroll back here. I'm going to go back to our slides. So we're going to go back to our text editor. There's going to be a lot of switching between our screens. So I apologize. I actually might break this out into its own slot, own tab. Oh, now my computer's acting slow. Okay. I'm going to break this out into its own tab so I won't have to keep going back and forth between slides and just like showing you things. Okay. So we're going to go back to our text editor. Here it is. And we're going to create a .env file. I'm trying to see if I've created that already. I don't think I have. Oh, I have. So all you have to do is, if you want to run, you can open up an extra terminal window if you want to keep running your server so that your app stays running in the browser. I'm just going to do a split. Oop, what's this? My, I don't know why that's not working. Okay. Well, anyway, you could just create a .env file. And that's going to be important because that's where we're going to store important information later. So create that. This is where we're going to store environment variables, which are very important for us. So especially since we're storing secure information, because if you like upload this onto like GitHub or something like that, you don't want people to be able to look at these things. And that's what environment variables are for. So now that we have our .env file created, we're going to install the Auth0 React SDK. So this is the command. Can I actually, oops. Okay. I keep, sorry guys. I keep clicking things accidentally. So it's going to be npm install @auth0/auth0-react. So make sure you get that like syntax correct because it's important that you do. Usually what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just go back to quick start because yeah. Oh, and make sure when you put in your localhost 4040 that you click save because you do want to save those settings. But yeah, we're going to go here. Yeah, I'm just going to copy it from here because I don't want to get it wrong. And then I'm going to go back here. And I will kill my server for a second just because for whatever reason, it's not allowing me to open up like a dual window. And I don't know why. That's so weird. And I don't really have the time to figure that out right now. So I'm just going to paste that here. So we're installing the React SDK. This is going to basically allow us to use all the like Auth0 stuff that we want to use. Okay, I'm going to clear that. My computer is like running so slow right now. Oh, this is so frustrating. Okay, so back to our slides for our next step. Okay, so we're going to add the Auth0 provider with your domain client and redirect URLs as props. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second because this is like secure information and I want to make sure I'm not sharing this where I shouldn't. So give me 1 second, bear with me. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to go into our I have to make sure I'm not showing you these things really quickly. So I'm going to just, I'm trying to figure out the best way to show you guys this without showing you guys this. Hold on. As I clean this up very quickly. So command save. I'll share my screen again. Share screen. I'm going to do entire window. So once my screen is up there once I'm sharing my screen properly, I'll be able to show you guys. Give me 1 second. Oh, I'm going to look at the questions you guys have. Yes, you can fork the repo first. I didn't share the actual link to the repo. I apologize for that. And I didn't even realize the chat was here. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to run through these as quickly as I can. I will share the slides later. And let me see. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, I've missed so many comments. I'm so sorry, guys. Let me make sure. If you have any like urgent questions, please let me see. Okay, so here's the thing. I just realized. The link that I actually share with you guys, I just realized I've been using for GitHub for cloning repos, I've been using SHA, where you guys are probably mostly using HTTPS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign in. Oh gosh. I can't even share the right link with you guys because I'm not like properly authenticated. Oh gosh. So what I'll do is actually I'll keep the workshop going. I believe that I should be in the Discord later, and I will share the correct link because it's going to take me too long to like actually authenticate and everything to make sure I have the right link for you guys. I'm not sure about that Rockosaurus. I'm not sure about urgent question, how to fix this uncaught and promise error access to storage is not allowed from this context. I've never gotten that error before. You should probably just put that into Google or like ChatGPT or something like that. But yes, I realized just now I've been sharing the wrong type of Git clone link to you guys because I use SSH. You guys are probably using HTTP, and it takes a lot to like even show you guys how to configure SSH. So I'll share the right link later. But back to the program. Yes. So in our .env file, we're going to create environment variables for our React app because we don't want to expose our domain or client ID. So the syntax for that is in all caps React _ app _ auth0 _ domain. And you're going to set that equal to, I'll show you quickly what you're going to set that equal to here in our, this is a screenshot from the quick start. But again, you don't want to expose the domain or client ID to anybody. So this is going to be like, I'm going to have to like delete this and change this later. But this is like, actually, this is a screenshot, so it's not even mine. So what we're going to do is, you're going to take the domain. This is showing you a screenshot from your settings. So as you can see, this is like very similar to what you probably have up here. So you'll see this in settings. And what you're going to do is you're going to copy in your domain for up here and also your client ID. Sorry, I'm switching through so many tabs. And you're also going to copy the client ID specifically into the here. So everybody's clear. And we want to make sure, the client secret is not required. All we need right now are the domain and the client ID. Those two things, not the client secret, just the domain and client ID. Okay, so with that out the way, I'm going to quickly, can I pause sharing instead of like completely stop sharing? Like if no, I can't pause sharing. Okay, because I'm trying to follow all the like security protocol and make sure I don't show you guys anything I shouldn't show.
So, or I could just remove the screen from the live stream for you, and then you could pop it up when I could pop it up whenever you want.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Thank you. That's the thing about working with like security stuff. You got to be extra careful. So I'm going to copy and paste my domain and client ID here. Make sure that you guys can't see it. And you guys should do the same. And remember, you don't need to put this in like quotation marks or anything like that. You could just have it like in there. And then I'm going to copy my domain in here. And I'm going to save that. Okay. And so that keeps everything safe and secure for us. So I'm going to go back to, I'm getting mixed up with all my tabs now. Give me 1 second as I reorganize things again. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna go. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen again, because this part I want you guys to like kind of walk through with me pretty closely. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my code, and before I share my screen, let me make sure I'm not actually just showing you guys my literal environment variables, which I said you guys were not supposed to see. Okay. Okie dokie. Okay, now you guys can see. Okay, I'm sharing my screen again. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to be in this here because what we want to do is we have to add something called Auth0 provider, and that basically allows us to have access to all the auth things that we want to have through Auth0. So first we're going to import. So we've already installed the React SDK. So first we're going to import Auth0 provider. So I'm going to, in curly braces, Auth0. I spelled that wrong. Provider. And that fills it in for us, which is perfect. And so I'm going to save that really quickly. And so first we're going to create some variables up here. And these are going to hold our environment variables, which we need, again, to have access to all of the things that Auth0 gives us for login purposes, login and logout purposes. So we're going to type this. This is how you pull your environment variables. So we're going to do process.env dot, and then we're going to have our React underscore app underscore auth0 underscore domain. Okay. And then we're going to create one again for our client ID equals process dot env dot react underscore app dot underscore client underscore ID. Okay. And I forgot to put the semicolon here so we can make it uniform and perfect. And I'm going to move this over. Okay. And again, this is the index.js file. I don't know if I mentioned that previously, but this is the index.js file in our React app. And so we are going to wrap our application. So this basically means that we're giving the whole app access to all the goodies that the Auth0 React SDK is giving us. So that we don't have to like repeatedly import things and all that kind of good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Auth0 provider. Oops. How did I do to the? Okay. And this is going to include some important parameters, which are our domain. Oops. So domain equals curly brace domain. So we're going to be using the domain up there. And then we're also going to include the client ID. Yes. Oops. And we're going to set that equal to client ID. And we're also going to have authorization params. And this is going to be set equal to redirect URI. And this basically is like telling us where we want, which window we want things to open up in when we're doing our like login and log out. Okay, perfect. And we're just going to grab app now. Oops. And place it in between these brackets here. Okay, so that was kind of a lot, but this is the setup for allowing us to basically access all of our auth things. Okay, I'm going to try to check the comments to see if I missed anything. Someone says they're having, yeah, so the client said, I read that one already. Unsure if this is a problem that is called. I don't, so Waddle D, I don't know, what you mean by black screen? You mean by black screen when you try to run your server? Yeah, that shouldn't be happening. I'm trying to think then what you're. Yeah. If no elements are showing up, I'm assuming that's probably an issue coming from your index.js file. Like if nothing's showing up, it's probably here. I wish you could share a screenshot of the code you're looking at right now with me. But perhaps later on in Discord, if you're in the MLH Discord server, we can look at that together because it's hard for me to tell through just looking at like comments what's going on there. So please bear with me as we try to figure that out because yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could like the formatting is not having the formatting is like what am I looking at? I'm trying to think. Yeah, try commenting out or deleting Auth0 provider. Oh, that's the issue. Okay, so you're actually importing Auth0 provider with Navigate. You should only be importing Auth0 provider, not with Navigate. And maybe that's why you're having some issues there with not seeing anything because if the whole app is not displaying, that means that something is blocking this here. And I'm assuming it's probably Auth0 provider with Navigate. So try using Auth0 provider instead. Okay, so we're going to move ahead with the next part. We're going to create a login button component. So this will be through the component folder we have in here, which has a lot going on. But just like inside of here, we'll start login button.js. And this is how you create components in JavaScript. So let me see. I'm trying to like keep up with the. Okay, yeah, let me try to. It seems like everybody wants me to kind of like pause for now and try to debug this with you guys. So let me do that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second here. And I'm going to open up a new VS Code window because I want this to be useful for everyone. So I'm going to open up a new window. What is going on? Something's going on with my VS Code. It will not let me open up a new window. My computer is like acting up on me today. What in the world? Oh. The repo has with Navigate? Huh. That's strange because when I did it, it didn't. That was a couple months ago. I've ran this workshop before. This is the first time I've had this many issues with it. Okay. Give me 1 second because I'm trying to like. Okay, removing the with Navigate fixed it. Okay, well, everyone try that because it's hard for me right now to replicate the issues that you guys might be having because for whatever reason, my computer is not letting me open up a new VS Code window, which is really frustrating. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. I feel so bad that everyone's having so many issues, but picking up where we left off, we're going to create if we go to our file structure, under components, we're going to create a login button.js and make sure that the login is capitalized. Let me read this comment. To the line will look like this. Yes, it should be, let me just make sure I'm not lying to you. It should look like this. Import Auth0 provider. I'll actually copy and paste this into the comments so that it could be highlighted. Yes, that's what it should be. So you want it to be import curly braces Auth0 provider, and then from the in quotations at auth0/auth0 react. So we're importing this from the auth0 react SDK. Okay, so back to being in our component folder or component file for the login button. We're going to create a login button. So we're going to start by importing React from React. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. And then we're also going to import use auth0, which gives us access to a set of very important auth0 functions from, again, that auth0 React SDK. And so that was my cat. I didn't know he was in here. So we're going to export default function. Oops. And we're going to call this login button. And I think we're running short on time, so I don't think we'll be able to get to doing log out. But again, we do have, if you go in your settings, there will be a quick start tab for your application. And a lot of the instructions are also there. So we'll do const. And this is the specific function we're grabbing from use auth0. So this function we're looking for is called login with redirect. Making sure I spelled that right. Okay, I think I did. Sometimes like the things that trip you up are like missing a letter on something or like something like this, because make sure when you're calling that use auth0, make sure to include the parentheses, because I've missed that before and I was like, why isn't anything working? So for this component, we're gonna return a simple button. And when we click this button, we want to call the login with redirect function. Login with redirect. And we'll also add parentheses on this because this is a function. And we want the button to say login with one N, not two. Okay, I want to check the chat in the comments to see how everybody is doing. Let me check. How are we doing on time? Okay, so I do have some extra time, you guys. So I will take my time. I don't want to rush you guys. I want to make sure that we're like making sure everybody's on the same page. Yes, I'll make sure. So Chaya, I'll make sure to share the slides in Discord, and all the relevant links and things like that, so this can be as easy as possible for you to follow along with. Yeah, so you can go back and check any of the like pre-existing files like later to just like check up your work. But for now, we're gonna pretend like those aren't there. We're gonna do it from scratch because it's more fun that way. Okay. Cool. So we have our button created. It seems like everyone is on the same page. So what we're going to do now, and I'm not going to keep going back to the slides because the slides I feel like is actually kind of redundant. I'm just going to hopefully so what do you mean, what do you do with the .env file, Racosaurus? I need more specifics to know what you mean. Like, where does it go or why is it there? Because I can give you more information if I get more clarity. So the .env file is at the root of your project, and it doesn't necessarily get called per se. The env file is like a special type of, oh no, I don't want you guys to see. Okay, the env file is a special type of file. So what it does is this is where you store variables that you don't want to be accessed to, like when you upload this to GitHub. So what we do is here any file in your project that starts with dot in front of it means that when you upload this to GitHub, it will not be included. So that means that no one's going to be able to see what's in here. So you just want to like make sure that the point is that I'm making sure to like be pretty adamant about not showing you guys my .env file, because it's really important to stay secure when you do this. So I want to really emphasize that like no one should really be seeing your environment variables. Like you don't really want anyone to see this. But that's basically the purpose of it. And the way that we don't necessarily call the .env file, but what we do is we call the variables inside of it, which we did earlier when we were working in the index.js file. So like here, we have process.env, and we're calling the variables we have there. We're calling the variables that we made in the .env file. So I hope that makes sense to you. Okay. So yes, I hope that everybody's on the same page there. Where were we? I forgot where I was. So we just created our login button. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our let me make sure I'm looking at the right thing quickly. Login button. Okay, I know where I'm supposed to be. Okay, so we created our login button, and I'm going to move this over here. Okay, yes, we've created our login. Yes, so Auth0 is free for up to, I think, like 7,000 or 10,000 monthly active users or something like that. But for our intents and purposes, it's free. So now we've created our login button here, which is very simple code. We're going to go to our navigation. So if you look under components, there's a little folder called navigation. I'm going to click on desktop because right now that's what you're probably working on. And I'm going to click navbar-js. And here we have like all of our navigation components. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add directly here, or let me just check and see what's in navbar buttons. Yeah, I'm going to just add it directly here. I'm going to import login button from our component folder and save that. And then here I'm going to import tab. Login button. I actually have to go in the next few minutes because I have a meeting. So yes, if we look at this here, we've added our component, the log button component, into the navigation bar. So when we go to our oops, I have to run npm. Why are my cap locks on? npm run start. What's going on? Okay. Start to run my server again. This did not share on the right screen. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna X this out so as you can see, the button has like no styles, no nothing, because we haven't added any CSS to it yet. But you click the login button. Why is it not working? Callback URL mismatch. Okay, let me see if I can fix that in my settings, because that should absolutely be working right now. If I go to my application details, did I save these changes? I'm pretty sure I did. I added, how's my localhost for 4040 not included? Maybe I didn't save them. So I'm just going to go back because this is what's supposed to be here. I'm going to go back here. and paste in localhost 4040 because I'm pretty sure I did that. Maybe I did not save it. Save changes. The lesson here is to save your changes. Can take up to 30 seconds before it takes effect. Okay, I'm going to go back to my here and reload this a couple times to make sure it works this time. Yay! Okay, so now we see that our login works. I could put in email and password here, and all of this gets stored securely by Auth0. I unfortunately do not have enough time to go through the logout side with you guys because started late and I have another engagement I have to run to after this. But I will definitely try to be there to answer any questions in Discord. You can just tag me because I should be there. But this is what the login side of it looks like. If you want to keep going, when you go to your application settings, just pick up from where we left off when it starts to talk about logout, and then you can figure out how to do this with fully functional login and logout, which will be great. So yes, again, I apologize for all the issues people were having earlier, for sharing some of the wrong links, and then also for starting late. Oh, I think that kind of threw me off a little bit, but I appreciate you guys sticking with me here. I hope this was interesting to you all. I wish I could have had a little bit more time, but we got started a bit late. But thank you all for coming, and make sure to check out Auth0. We've got some great resources there for people who are getting started and want to learn more about all things auth. So thank you all for your time. And again, like I said, I will be in Discord to answer any questions you guys have. But yes, I have to get going because I do have a meeting that I have to go to in a few minutes. So yeah.
Thanks so much, Ciora. We really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
yeah, once again, y'all make sure to check us out on Discord so you can get your questions answered, and also so you can get a copy of the slides. Outside of that, Ciora, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of
Really
course.
appreciate it. And everyone, thank you for your time. We're going to be doing another workshop at 3 p.m. ET today, all about GitHub. So make sure to check that out. Until then, see y'all later.
See you guys.